the easiest way to make this work is to talk to somebody who understands that. And I'm really, really excited to invite our CTO, Brian Kellner, on stage. Brian, all yours.
All right. So they took away my podium, so I can't just stand here and be posed constantly in one spot. Thank you all for coming, really. I have had a great chance to chat with a lot of you on Engage, some of you very frequently on Engage, and by all means, keep talking there, because that's one of our best ways to get to know you and to answer your questions. But it's even more important to talk person to person. When we're here and you can lay out your story and describe what you're trying to accomplish and what's really important to you and what we're doing well and what we need to improve on, that's where I can really quiz you deeply and say, okay, I understand how that works, what about this case, and so forth. So as much time as we can make for it, let's chat, and then of course keep talking on Engage. When I get the tasking to talk about our social strategy, it's super tempting for me to just say, well, let's just go there. That whole make work better thing sounds good, and even make work suck less sounds even better. So I would just like to just jump to the end state and have all my business processes be social and on mobile and be done with it. But the reality is that you are all on a journey. You're at some place along this path, and most of you are progressing along in one or more of these areas. And so our strategy basically, as simply put as possible, is meet you where you are on that path and help you move along that path while still building to that end state where we make work better. Right? So this is the fun balancing act of being a company like ours, where we get to build stuff for the here and now and have a view as to where we're going down the road. And so for each of you, you're coming at it from a slightly different direction or a different perspective. For most of you, when we talk about mobile, that was something that you picked up along the way coming from the social side. So for most of the customers that I've gotten to work with, you started out trying to implement social. Along the way, you said, gosh, we got a lot of iPads, we've got a lot of iPhones, we really should be doing something with mobile. And for the last couple of years, mobile has been one of those early programs for a lot of you where you're really getting your infrastructure in place. And what's interesting for me and why the one platform is really exciting is, for those of you who got fairly far along on the mobile side, you quickly got to the case where you said, it's cool that we've got social on this device, but now what I want is to be able to do more. I have other things I want to do, and we didn't have a great answer for that. So when we talk about those of you progressing down the mobile path, which I think is everybody at some point, and most of you now, that's the part that I think is really exciting. For a few of you here in the room, you started on the path with us around process. You started with the idea of, how do I make routine work better? How do I get people to be able to use my internal systems and have fewer support calls, better adoption? And so for those cases, it's easy to think of, well, that's a self-contained world. But the reality is, we see so many opportunities to take those routine activities and tie in the rest of the social framework and the mobile framework. And so we'll talk about progressing down that path. And then for the vast majority of you, you're on what I would call the social path. You've been with us either 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, some of us quite some time. We've been doing this for a long, long time. And I think, as we see progressing down that path, you tend to move through a range of stories that start from relatively straightforward sharing and communicating stories up through things more like expertise and recognition. And finally, you get to usually some state of mobile and business process integration. So our goal is to meet you where you are on those paths and then help you get along to the final state. Simple strategy. So the fun part of this talk is that I get to do each of these sections in the what I'm really excited about, what we've done, and what I'm excited about where we're going to. So with regard to enterprise mobility, there's two parts here. I'm going to talk about the social clients for the Sitrion social platform, or what most of you have called social sites, or some of you have called NewsGator for a while. And believe me, the names are a little bit of a challenge for me, too. So if I slip up and call something by an old name, it's just part of the adoption process. Yeah, good. We've all made that learning. So it's interesting where you look at a mobile client story and you say, well, what I really want to do are put in some really cool features. I want to make something really fun to play with and really exciting. And then we go out and we talk to you, and you say, well, we've bought this big mobile device management platform or mobile application management platform, and nothing goes mobile in our environment without going through that. And so we say to ourselves, sounds good. Let's go talk to those folks. And it turns out that there are over 120 of these different vendors out there, and that the good news for us is that there are 4 or so that are really big and dominant. And so one of our huge efforts, and it's really exciting for me to talk about, is working with those platforms. If you've made an investment in a Mobile Iron or AirWatch or Citrix or Good Technologies, we have done integration with them so that now when you deploy those clients out, you can get the management control over it, you can get the remote wiping, you can get secure access kinds of stories. Turns out it's not easy, right? A lot of what I get to be excited about is making the hard stuff work. Most of those platforms are pretty young. That's a pretty new and evolving market, and so they're making changes really rapidly. And our ability to work rapidly with them has made a huge difference. It's exciting for me to solve the plumbing stuff, as much as that might not be the most awe-inspiring to look at. If it doesn't work in the plumbing, the rest of things don't go well. At the same time, like Daniel said, we've done major updates on all of the clients. We've released new versions of iOS, Android, WinPhone 8, Windows 8.1, and a new Outlook plugin we shipped out the door last week or so, didn't tell anybody about, but it's got drag and drop in it. So if you've got an email with an attachment, and it really should be a post in the stream, just pick it up, drop it, and it'll post and put the attachment into a community, and you've got the conversation there. These are the stories that we hear from you, and they're the fun things to build out. It's not just at the client level that we've been doing the work. We've been doing the work at the cloud level as well. So we put out a cloud-based push notification service. You can get push notifications out to your devices. And we put out a secure access tunnel capability. So if you haven't bought an MDM or MAM platform, or you don't have a strategy yet for secure access, we put that out as well, right? So a mixture of very fun, sexy features and super pragmatic plumbing features. So that's where we see you on the path. That's where we've invested. And if we talk about going forward, it's a lot of the same. We're committed to making this the best of breed social client for the Sitrion social platform. That means continuous work with these back-end platforms. These MDM and MAM platforms continue to add features. We want to give you the ability to leverage them. At the same time, we're adding more and more features to the clients themselves. We want you to be able to do more from the mobile client. Daniel's a driving force for this because he does work mobile. And so when something is not the way he needs it to be from a mobile point of view, he has a compelling use case, and he is the boss, although we don't actually spend so much time talking about being the boss. The other thing is that with these mobile device management platforms, you're now getting the ability to have more support for branding. Because in those platforms, you can wrap up a specific version of the client, it can be wrapped up with specific branding around it. And lastly, we've actually already built a prototype discovery service in the cloud so that when your user first gets your clients, if you're not using an MDM platform that already sort of points it at where to talk to, they connect, and all they need to put in is their email address, and then we'll route it to the right URL to connect to your company, right? Again, easing the process of getting started. So from my point of view, the exciting stuff around enterprise mobility is we get to solve really practical problems and build cool, sexy things for you at the same time. That said, whenever we go out and talk to you, it's inevitable that you say, but we have all these other mobile use cases. And so when Daniel brings up the Citrion One platform, this was one of the most exciting things for me coming to join the forces of Citrion and NewsGator together. So if you think about what it's like to build an enterprise mobility solution, it turns out that it has a ton of elements to it. You have at the base some kind of enterprise system you want to talk to. And that means you need to understand its APIs, you need to understand how to connect to it, authenticate against it. Somehow you have to get connectivity from that enterprise system all the way to a mobile client so that you can actually carry on that conversation. You have to be able to build the functionality in that mobile client to enter a purchase order, do time tracking, request vacation, whatever. You have to distribute that client out to people. You have to be able to update that client. You have to get the right versions of those clients to the right people. It's a big, big problem. And like Daniel said, if you went out and hired yourself a mobile developer and said, I'm an iOS developer, they may be really good at building that part on the iOS client, but the rest of that is mostly a mystery to them. And assembling that whole story is super hard. So what's really neat about the one platform from my perspective is It actually solves all of these things. We have people who've never done mobile development who pop open Visual Studio and they drag over a couple of UI controls and they attach it to a couple of SAP endpoints that we provide for them, and they have a working app in hours. And we have some cool videos that can walk through that story. And we've trained a bunch of partners and customers already. But it's rare to see a solution that basically spans an entire huge problem like that and makes it something that's supportable and reliable. And from a technology perspective, the most clever part for this, from my point of view, is defining an app that you're going to deliver to somebody in a way that doesn't need to know any native coding, and being able to push that out to the right people so that your salespeople get sales order entry, and everyone gets time tracking, and everyone gets vacation request, and inventory people get inventory lookup, right? Super cool to be able to start up with a set of technology like that. Had NewsGator tried to build this all unto itself, we would never be here by now, right? And so one of the things that you don't really see in the background is that Sitrion, the company, what we call CityOnClassic, and if you call everything heritage, legacy, or something or other, it's all good. We're still working out those terms. But Sitrion, the initial company, is full of technologists, right? It's a hugely technology-dominated organization in terms of developers and folks who do the back-end work. So going forward, what I think is really exciting is, again, we have the experience from the NewsGator side, and this is true, it was NewsGator that learned all these MDM lessons, to be able to tie in and take advantage of those in the one platform and be able to take the one client through the process of working with the Mobile Irons and AirWatches of the world. At the same time, we have this cool vision for all of these new client capabilities that Daniel showed off, right? That make it easy for you as a developer to say, I want to add commenting here, let me just drag that in. Or I want to add approval control, let me just drag that in. And make that a really compelling and consistent experience that you can develop rapidly. We've also been building out more back-end connectors. From the Citrion side, we've been doing a lot of work in tapping into different parts of SharePoint because we know these stories are relevant for a bunch of you. And some of our partners have been able to do some great work with other platforms as well, which is really exciting. And if you see the iMason app, that's actually working against the O365 version of SharePoint. So we think that you have lots of stories that span lots of back-end systems. We'll continue investing there, and we'll continue building out the development tools because we know that you can build things much more rapidly if we don't get in the way. So this product, what's really fun for me is it's on completely rapid iteration cycles. There is no specified release schedule. We're basically pushing out code as rapidly as it gets done. We actually have an update we're pushing out next week. And so we're going to be continuously innovating against this platform. Those of you who are working with us now and then over the next few weeks are going to have a big voice in how this develops and what things get done first. So this is a part that I really want to chat with you about, what stories you want to go after. But from our point of view, this part of the path goes very, very quickly. The process path. So for me, when I first saw the Smart Routines product, my first moment was, wow, that looks gorgeous. I would say, we build a lot of software that we expect you to brand and sort of fit into your theming and customizing. And when I saw the Smart Routines product, I said, wow, it's just beautiful out of the box. But the thing that I always think is really interesting is so many of your stories are about the data that have to do with the people. What's really going on in terms of their profile, in terms of their updates. What can we do to be more intelligent about it? And what I thought was really clever in the Smart Routines product was knowing that, for example, if someone got married, for example, that they might need to change multiple things in SAP and guide the user through those kinds of stories and be able to understand where the user was at and do some intelligent work with that. Also, what I thought was really compelling was knowing how hard it is to tie different enterprise systems together and deploy in different modes. The fact that you could deploy this out running in SharePoint on premises, running in O365 in the cloud, running completely standalone was really an interesting and clever architectural use. And so, again, the team from Germany that did all the work on building this up really did a thoughtful job at looking at what the deployment patterns are like. And then lastly, it was really nice to be able to have social integration come together quickly with this. So not only can we do a drop-in a stream on the actual HR pages here so that if you're running open enrollment and you ask yourself, hey, I'm thinking about looking at a different insurance plan here. I wonder if anyone has experience with this. Maybe I can ask my colleagues for some input. You can drop that in and use the Sitrion social stream. And we've actually already built the capability to drop in the Yammer stream if you're running an O365 and you're using the Yammer there. Totally fine with us to use that as your place to go ask other people, what you want to do. That's already pre-built and part of the O365 app. And then the other really, really cool thing for me was 2 weeks after the companies came together, we already had the whole approval workflow running from SAP through Sitrion Social to the mobile clients and all the way back again, right? So within 2 weeks of the companies coming together, we have very sharp folks. We had a vacation approval request, for example, emitted from SAP, showing up in your social stream inside of SharePoint, showing up in your mobile client, being able to comment on that, being able to approve or decline it and have it go all the way back through, right? So that's out of the box stuff, and of course, there's much more that can be done. What's probably even more exciting if I think about the process part of the journey, if you're looking at this part of the journey, it's that, gosh, there's a lot of processes in these big systems, right? So starting with the core HR stories is good because they're universal, and they give us a view into a lot of the data that's happening that's really interesting under the hood. But the scenarios that we can go after putting in here are virtually limitless. And so as I look forward to things like the time tracking or vacation request or learning kinds of stories, these are all natural stories to tie in here. They fit in with the improvement of your workforce and making work better for them. And they offer us more points to integrate into the social platform and into the mobile story, right? So for us, we want to work with you where you are on the path, and we want to jump ahead to the end where we say these all work together seamlessly. And lastly, we know that not everyone has SAP, and so one of the next sort of steps along the road is what other back-end systems in the world do you want to work with that have this story for enabling the processes more easily? And of course, near and dear to my heart is all the stuff I get to be excited about from the social perspective. And I shouldn't tap the mic. I'll try not to do that again. So it's impossible to spend the short 30-minute segment talk about what we've done in the last year inside of the product we all talked about as social sites, and now we call Citrion Social. There are dozens and dozens of features that we've released over the last year. And we'll have a whole session about feature prioritization. So if you want to talk about the features you want in the next release, it's a great time to come and chat with me. We'll do what we normally do, which is you get to tell me why you do or do not want features. And as a special treat for all of you, I'm going to reopen the feature prioritization campaign on Engage so that you can go in and tweak your votes around a little bit if after the course of this conference you decide, I'd really like some other features more than these. We're very responsive to what you guys want. But let me talk about a few of these features because really at the end of the day, these are the things that you told us would make a difference. And so questions have always been one of those stories I felt like was just fundamental to social working. I mean, what is it about social communication that makes it unique? It's the idea that you can send a message out and it can go to someone that you didn't have to specify, right? So what's the best use case for that? Well, the best use case is I have something I need to share with someone. I don't even know who it should be. Or I need to ask something, and I don't know who that should be. Right? So those are the really great matches for the underlying mechanisms of social. And so what we've done with questions is continuously drive towards that. So we've released a bunch of features around helping you auto-complete what communities it should go to. We already auto-routed questions by tags. We actually have this suggest ahead feature, which is basically looking as you're typing and doing natural language processing on it to see, has someone already asked this question or made this post? We'll save you the time of submitting it. And we've done a lot of work to ensure the accountability of it. We have tracking around questions, nice reporting around questions, and we've done a bunch of work to make sure that questions that go unanswered get someone's attention so that they do close them out, and you have people who have the authority to close them out. And that's a little bit of why you see our statistics improving on Engage around handling questions. We have more tools for it, and we want you to have those tools as well. We've done a lot of work to try to help the product train people. We certainly appreciate, I love Tina's expression about taking someone and walking them through the setup, because I think the reality is nothing is more compelling than someone guiding someone. The tips part of the product is there to provide some augmentation, to some reminder to say, hey, FYI, maybe you didn't know this feature is there. It's something worth looking at. We've done lots of things to make it easier to make posts more compelling, tons of work tying into documents, whether you're following them, whether you want to have a conversation around them, constant work around notifications, because that's the lifeblood of a system like this. You have people who are going to work in there all the time, and you have people who are going to work in there based on being told to work in there. So my little notification tip, besides logging in to Engage, if you aren't going to have a chance to log in to Engage all the time, you can turn on notifications. If you're getting too many notifications, you can turn them back a little bit. And my pitch is, for the product feedback community, either turn on notifications for new posts or questions, or turn on the feature that we put out there, which is the daily summary for a community, right? So one click, you get a daily summary of everything that happened in that community, and not as many frequent emails, but more of a, this is what I need to know. And product feedback is a good place to pay attention to. A lot of good conversation there. So of course, all the communities are good. I'm just lobbying for mine a little bit more. Later, I'll start lobbying for your Eurekas. So in any case, we do lots and lots to tie in with SharePoint at the list level, at the workflow level. We added in machine translations, very handy when you buy a company in Germany to be able to get machine translation in your product. And we've, of course, continued to work with search. There are dozens and dozens and dozens of features that aren't listed here. But for me, it's exciting to be able to continuously hear you ask for something and then ship it. So it's not just the core features, right? On top of all that stuff, we've been working on building out more full-fledged stories, the things we call the solutions. And so internal communications, I will completely admit, we just full-on copied from you, right? When we started shipping our product, there were a bunch of customers who came back and said, it's great, we're carrying on these conversations. We need a way to use this to talk to our audience. And so after a little bit of diagnosing it, it turns out we had almost everything already built there. We have communities that you can set up that you can pre-tie to specific audiences. So you have email distribution lists that you are already using for doing your notifications. You can take those email distribution lists, turn them into communities, be able to target posts to those communities, decide how long they stay promoted in front of everyone. You can decide if you want them to really stand out and sort of occupy people's attention for a long time or just flow through the stream, and you can track what happens with them. And this is one of the things that communications professionals said was most important to them, was that they wanted to be able to understand what was happening. And so if you now send a message through this, you can get a sense of how often it's appearing at the top of the stream for someone and how often people are clicking into it or liking it. And that tells you a lot about what's successful or not. And so what is probably clear is we use our tools a lot internally. But as someone who's always trying to find ways to understand how people get the most value of the product, this has been really fun for me because I know, for example, I'm much more likely to get a response to, hey, go try out this feature message if I put it out somewhere in the noonish hours in North America than I am if I'm going to send it out at the end of my day, right? Because, yes, we've got people in the APAC region and people waking up in Europe, but it turns out middle of the day is better to get more engagement from our folks if I want to get the North American audience engaged. We also built a pre-built layout for this, so you can start out with a home page that has all of the things we think are really helpful on it, and of course, we can always customize. So this is a story that you told us was important, and we built it. And similarly with innovation, what we've done with innovation is we started with the notion that you have tons and tons of smart people, and what they really want to be able to do is contribute. And so we built the capacity to gather ideas together, and over the course of this last year, we've taken this forward tremendously so that now you not only have the ability to collect the ideas, and we've done lots and lots of advancements around that. Categorization of those ideas to make sure people are sort of sorting them, automatic suggestion of similar ideas as people are typing them in, keyword filtering, and so forth. We've then realized, okay, so now you get a bucket of 200 ideas. That's not necessarily helpful for you unless you have a way to take them forward. And so we built this entire process around assembling labs to assess similar ideas, to propose projects, to turn those projects into project communities, to execute on the ideas, and then to track against your goals for completion. So innovation is almost always a top 2 or 3 priority. I think on the Gartner thing that Daniel cited, it was one of the top ones for CEOs. And this is a full-fledged process that's inside your platform for doing this story. And then lastly, amongst the solutions that we've added and that I get to be really excited about is the engagement scorecard. There are a couple reasons I'm really excited about this. One is everyone wants to know how they're doing. And we spent all this time building an adoption framework around understanding what we think are relatively important things. And this is all driven from you telling us, yes, the business side is important, the technology side is important, the people side is important. How do we understand and evaluate that? Rolling that into a scorecard that then is able to assess that with your goals, and then letting you drill down to explore those behaviors. Hey, questions are down, is that a problem? You know, answer time is taking longer. Well, maybe you're in a holiday season. That might not be such a bad thing. And so the other thing that's really fun for me is that this got built by Kelly. Kelly's around here somewhere. If you get a chance to talk to Kelly, there you go. So Kelly's one of these folks who gets to work with you all on a regular basis. And so it's nice to have people who are working hand in hand with the customers, building stuff out. So how to go forward from here? Well, it's simple. We'll just do 7 or 8 key things on this line alone. So first, the big thing for us is, again, here you are, you have an investment in this platform. How do we ensure that you keep using that and getting value out of that on an ongoing basis? So it was a really nice thing when at the SharePoint conference, Microsoft said there will be another version of SharePoint for deployment on premises. It will still support full trust code, which is how this is built. It doesn't have additional native social features built into it. So from a point of view of someone who's at Sitrion and building out products that do these things, this was the world's best story ever, because basically everything we've built still works. Everything that we've built has a direct applicability going forward. And as long as you're running SharePoint on premises, this product is there and continuing to evolve for you to meet those goals. Now, it's not just staying there forever and ever and nothing else is happening. We have a whole session on cloud here because in a lot of your cases, it's not just SharePoint on premises, it's also stuff in the cloud. And this is not one of those either or choices. I think one of these prior sessions I did this clever little fork in the road and said, you know, it's not actually both, it's not one path or the other, it's both. This is true for us. We are continuing to invest in this platform and driving forward features in this, and we're also looking to leverage the stories you want in the cloud and other capabilities coming from Microsoft. And that's what we've always done. When there's a new capability that's part of your solution set, we want to be able to tap into it. And this is a similar thing with the SAP side of things. So we'll continue driving features through. In fact, we're going to do some of that today. We'll talk about that in a second. We continue to work on the scaling side. Some of you, as you've heard, have very, very large organizations. Continuously work on those things to make sure that we can meet those goals. And then we have tons of opportunities for integrations, both with the mobile and process side and with other parts of your environment. And so there's lots of things that already exist in the product that we don't spend a ton of time talking about. You can take events in from other platforms already. You can drive expertise scores from other systems. If you have a learning system, for example, you can drive badging off of other systems. There are already pre-built integrations to pull in the Yammer feed, a Salesforce chatter feed, a dynamic CRM feed, a Twitter feed. There are tons of integrations in the product. It's such a big product, we don't spend a ton of time talking about any one of them. But the net is that we think of this as a place that can be your hub. And this is our pledge. We're here to provide value to you. And so, to wrap it up and to give just a couple minutes for questions, part of giving value to you is building stuff that you want. And sometimes we do that in a day. And so today is one of those days. If you were at the hackathon of, last year at our collective event in North America, we grabbed a bunch of people together. We said, well, what should we build for you today? And sure enough, we got a bunch of great ideas. We built a bunch of features, and we shipped them in the next release. What we've done this time is we've used the Engage site and the actual process of our innovation product to gather ideas for a hackathon. We let you put those ideas in, let you vote. I have to tell you, it's just a tiny bit scary going and saying, you know, what do you think we should build for you in one day? But you're all actually quite good at this. You're pretty good at not only picking things that are quite valuable, but also things that are realistic. And so right now in Denver, there's 3 teams of developers working on these 3 feature areas because you picked them, because you voted for them. And so Brian's here, Michael's here, and basically their features are being built out today. So if they get an email and they have to sort of duck out for a quick phone call, it's because they're collaborating. But this is the really fun story of you tell us where the value is, and we build it literally in a day. And at the end of the day, that's the way we have to work to get down this path to be able to meet you where you are on the path and get you functionality that's valuable right now, we have to be that kind of responsive. And yet, we need to know where these paths lead. And for us, they converge on a story where all of these things come together. And so we're adding all of these features because we see this stuff converging. And so for us, that's the constant balancing act, but that's our strategy. And with that, we have maybe a few minutes for questions.
We all know how much Brian likes to be in the center of attention. Usually he's hiding and trying to build product. Questions? Overwhelmed? Only question is, when do we get coffee?
The restroom is that way, by the way, if that's your number one question.
Jeremy, over here.
I have a pretty loud voice. I can probably just yell. I love the engagement scorecard. I'm really eager to get it. I know you mentioned that it's coming soon for communities. I know we got a lot of opportunity with that. I don't want to put it on the spot, but I'm just curious how far along are we and how much do we look forward to from the community side of the engagement scorecard?
It's done. And Kelly will talk about it tomorrow, your session tomorrow. There you go. I mean, yeah.
Almost a decade now, so thank you.
Yeah, you know, it's so much like, it's like having children, right? You don't want to love one more than the other. That's a pretty good-looking kid, though. So I have 3 kids. It's I love them all equally. Right?
So it looks like we are the only one who holding everybody back to have coffee and a break. Brian and I want to thank you all for this great journey in the last 12 months. We really learned a lot from you, and as you saw here, we're building product, and some of the stuff we're building overnight is needed. So making sure that you're really going out there, participate in the things that we offer while you're here. And if you want to know what else is happening here, we bring back our crazy Aussie to tell us more about that. And the entire team is going to be here the entire event. So find us, hunt us down, drag us into a corner and have a conversation, just as we learned you need to do with your executives. You know, corner them and give them no excuse. Do the same with us. Thank you very much, and back to Luke.